to another episode of Tobin Tonight after a long hiatus. We decided to go in a different format here for Tobin Tonight. Again, usually interview. We got celebrities, musicians, actors, actresses. But I noticed that there's like this whole other landscape that we could be touching on. Something that I feel personally attached to is like youth in sports. You probably have a child in sport, maybe a niece or nephew, somebody in sports, and the landscape has definitely changed, I feel, from when I played it. Katie, probably from when you played it. So to kind of get into it, we're going to talk about youth in sports, the mental health aspect. And like, I could have just did this episode all by myself, but then people were like, Brian, what do you know? Like, you're just like a coach. You're just like someone's like uncle. It's like, that's fair enough. So we brought in Katie Castles. Katie, you're all the way out in Edmonton. But can you explain to people more or less a little bit of your background? Because I know you played sports, you've coached it. I believe it's like Alberta, Team Alberta at one point as well. But it's just not like, hey, Brian, you brought in another coach. Great. And you brought in a female voice. It's not that. Katie, tell them what exactly you do.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. So I'm in Edmonton. I grew up here in Alberta and I was a competitive gymnast growing up. So that was sort of my primary sport. Did that 20 hours a week. All the crazy things you hear about gymnastics in the 90s sort of shaped my experience with sports and did some other sports as well, some softball, and then as most gymnasts, I went to try diving, platform diving after I quit gymnastics, and that was not for me. Couldn't get used to landing on my head. And then I coached gymnastics. I coached elite gymnastics, and I was a choreographer for many years, 16 years or so, while I worked on a master's degree. And then eventually I became registered as a psychologist. So I'm a registered psychologist. And I work primarily with youth athletes here. So a lot of gymnasts, but also a lot of hockey players because, it's Canada, it's Edmonton. And I have two boys. I'm raising two very, very competitive, athletic boys. So I've got one little hockey player. That's his passion. And then my 8-year-old is a basketball kind of kid, but they really like to try every sport.
What's the one in hockey? What's the age group for him?
He's U11, so he's in his second year of U11. So next year he'll move to U13. So,
Okay.
and he plays at the double A level. So, it's a fairly competitive level he's playing. Yeah.
I like how like when you went over like the competitive side of like sports you play, like the other thing that you missed is like, listen, I've only played through my life soccer, uh, dabbled in basketball maybe for a year at school level because it's just something fun to do, and bowling. Maybe that's about it. Like I like ball hockey, of course, but like I was
Yeah.
just looking through yours, and it's like you could just like list off sports. You know, like if you've never met a kid before in your life, and they're just like, I just came from a sport today, and you go through like a standard list. Like, was it
Yeah.
basketball? Was it this? Was it the? It's like you look through yours. It's like basketball, softball, like track. I'm just like, did she have time to do homework? Did she have time? Like, does she know her parents? Do her parents know her? Like, is more or less like, go on, Katie. But like we were discussing this before we kind of hopped on here. I wanted to kind of get into like, I guess the youth side in sports because again, when we were smaller, I'm 34. So my parents, like again, I've never played, say at a competitive level. Like I've seen it. Like I've
Yeah.
been at a house league and I'd look over across at like the soccer pitch or whatever, or the other field. And it's like, here's a competitive team. Like, oh, that's nice. I'd like to try out for it. But like you never really had it, like no parent was talking to another parent about a competitive. It was almost like just let him play. Let him do what he wants to
Yeah.
do. So my parents would drop me off at soccer and then pick me up at 8 o'clock. How was the game? Did you win? Did you
Yeah.
lose? Whatever. And it didn't phase them. It's like it didn't matter. You'd go bowling. If I'm animated, of course, my parents would say like you were animated bowling. Like if you didn't get a strike, you'd throw up like a tantrum. And this is like, yesterday. No, I'm not kidding. This is like, 12, 13 years ago. But it was not like, okay, so like he's pretty good at bowling, but it's not like, let's get him to a provincial level. Let's get him here. It's almost like let him play, let him figure it out. Now I see kids that it's almost like you go to their parents and be like, I think he has a chat. I think he has a chance next year to make like U9, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, U9, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, he's 9. Like, I don't even think he knows. You've got in his head now, but I'm sure if he was just like, dude, I just want to play with Brady and my other friends, like,
Yeah.
you know.
They do
So
usually. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what they want usually. Yeah.
And I find like it's just a whole different landscape. And I don't know how we got here, because some people will be like, well, it's your generation like that have started it because
Yeah.
you grew up being competitive and now you want it for your kids, where it's almost like you're passing down your dream to them. And I'm like, okay, I get that. That's fair. And it's almost like, well, I didn't get the chance to. And now there's so many resources out there that they have. Like, we didn't have like a private this or a private that for sports. Now you do. And again, it's probably run by our generation of crowd. But at the same point, it's like, where does the line draw that's almost like you think it's good, but it might not be so good for that person that you're putting in this sport?
Yeah, well, I'm a few years older than you, but yeah, there it's significantly different. And my parents were involved. But they were both working, so
Yeah.
they weren't super involved because they couldn't be. And my sister also played sports, and so they were not nearly as involved as a lot of parents are now. But I think it's generational, but it's also those things are partly driven by parents who want their kids to have every opportunity. And I think it almost always comes from a really good place of wanting your kids to have every opportunity to make it. But
Yeah.
it's also a really big shift in the type of careers that people are choosing, right? Like those careers were not available when we were younger either. People weren't choosing to be private coaches. You were either, if you were a coach, you were usually a volunteer. And people are now more often seeing that there's an opportunity to make a career out of running camps and running teams and running tournaments, right? So that has been a really big driver of the youth sports market as well.
So you think it's not necessarily like, again, I kind of, it's like, I guess, good cop, bad cop. It's like I kind of look at it from the side of like, oh, our crowd is like, well, we didn't get the chance, so we're gonna make that chance now. Where I guess your kind of landscape is like, hey, this is like a whole nother opportunity open. It's almost like, I guess, to kind of compare maybe apple to apples in a different landscape. It's like when I was smaller, if you wanted to be involved in like music videos or like, present music videos, it was Much Music or it was MTV. Now for this next generation here, it's like we had Vine at one point, you have TikTok, you have YouTube. It's like there's no real, like, it's not like it's anything wrong with it. It's just that here's a new platform that we didn't have that you can now kind of master. And I feel like
Yeah.
maybe that's the landscape you're taking. Is like you couldn't be a private coach back in our day, but it's like now you can. So it's an avenue that you can take.
I think it's like if we're looking at it from a slightly cynical perspective, which I try not to do
Yeah.
too often, but it's capitalism, right?
Yeah.
It's there's opportunities for people to start businesses and make money, and they want to make money and work in a field that they're interested in. And then we on the other side, you have the parents who desperately want their kid to have every opportunity. They make really good people to sell to,
Yeah.
because they really want their kids to have every opportunity. So we have business owners who are passionate about their sport. We have parents who are sometimes don't know a ton about the sport, but they want the best for their kid, and they are your very best customers.
Yeah, and
So I mean, it's
I just wonder at times, like, again, like it's you could like make a whole argument or a whole episode on this itself, but it's like, you'll see someone's name attached to a hockey school or a soccer camp, and like people get enticed by the name because it could be like an ex-hockey player or someone that like even played at maybe the highest at an OHL level, or it could be a
yeah,
coach that was like a part of Team Canada at some point. And like doesn't mean that they're always on the ice. They might just have their people that run the camp. But then like I feel like parents look at it and be like, well, it's a name. They can probably get
yeah,
my kid somewhere. And then it's like, okay, but the guy that's also been involved 20 years at a local level and has done all the sports right up through could also just be as helpful. It's just that the name isn't attached. Like, it's like, for example, if you win power skating, and it's like, I'm not putting it out there. I don't know if he has a school, just say it is, but it's like, because you're in Edmonton, it's like if McDavid has a power skating camp, people are going to be like, fastest skater alive. Okay, my
yeah,
kid's going to that camp. McDavid might
totally.
show up twice, right? Like, but he has
But
these
even if he
people.
did, like, I
Yeah.
mean, even if McDavid does show up every day,
Yeah.
does he know how 10-year-olds should be learning to skate? Does he understand how
Yeah.
10-year-olds think? Like that's much more important.
Yeah.
than whether or not you just have the skill that they're trying to develop. That's
Yeah.
not as
And then
important as how to teach it.
exactly. And then there could be the guy that's always only coached 10-year-olds, right? And he could be like in his 50s now. So he might not be the one out on the ice, but he could have like two sons that are out on the ice, but he's passing down that wisdom and he's there,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like I feel like, but his name isn't the value. So sometimes it's like some parents are like, and then what happens on the flip is other parents like, well, he was in this program, he did really well. And then other parents look and go, oh man, he really improved in the last year on the unknown guys camp. So now we're all going to migrate to the unknown guys camp. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
that's where I feel like some kids are kind of like, did I do something wrong? Like, why am I just made friends at this camp. Now you're taking me from this one to go over here. It's almost like,
Well,
it's
it's
like
a,
I
yeah,
feel
I
like
mean,
an
it's a,
experiment.
yeah, I mean, it's also just like, I mean, this is sort of what we had chatted about, what I would love to talk about, what I often talk about is this professionalization in youth
Yeah.
sports, and how this impacts a lot of things. This impacts the child, this impacts the family, this impacts the wider sports organizations in the country, right? In terms of how they get insurance, whether they're regulated by, say Hockey Alberta, Hockey Canada, or they can just run their own stuff privately and not have to follow the rules of those bigger organizations.
Yeah.
So it's a big conversation for sure.
Yeah, because like I mean, I looked this up on like Google just so people don't think this is off the top of my head, but it's like apparently if you look up just youth and sports and mental health, apparently, supposedly, for mental health, it says that like putting your youth in sports is supposed to enhance their mental health, reduce like anxiety, depression, encourage the growth of their like social connections, which I can see. And but almost like an advertisement for like any pill that you see online, like anything like, oh, like, hey, it's like you got diabetes. Well, like here, this can help this. But here for the rest of like the 20 minutes of the commercial, here's all the side effects where it's
Side
almost
effects.
like can cause burnout and anxiety. So the very thing that you're like, hey, join the sport so you don't get depressed or get anxiety. It's like, oh, by the way, the thing that you might not even have before you join the sport, you could get it. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's very true. What you said is statistically accurate.
yeah,
Sports, having your kids in sports decreases their risk for a lot of mental health, for a lot of problematic mental health outcomes. However, um, and that's a big, like the big asterisk
yeah,
there is that there's a point of diminishing return. So sports are fantastic, but if you get to the point where that's like an elite level sports,
yeah,
so we're talking about sort of your division 1 athletes, or trying to make a national team, they actually are at higher risk of poor mental health outcomes because of the amount of time they have to spend training, the amount of stress that they're under at a young age. So yes, it's great, but we do have to watch out for the kids that are competing at really high levels.
yeah. And I know it's like we're strictly talking more or less kids in sports, but I kind of feel like the whole like some people will be like, oh, well, as they get older, they get tougher with that. It's like not necessarily because then it's like there's more pressure. Like you look at it from the standpoint of just say football. Like, and again, I'm sure people are like, well, they get paid a lot of money. It's like, yeah, but you don't think Josh Allen went home after like the 4 interceptions and read all the comments, coach is fired, and it's like he's reading it and like he's leaving the field in tears. So it's like I know he's only maybe I think he's like 28 or something years old, and some people are like, well, he's been around the league for like 4 or 5 years now. You should figure it out. And it's like still a person,
Well, and the money is irrelevant. I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. You could pay someone $1 billion a year. The money doesn't have anything to do with their stress response system,
yeah. But and then
right?
it's like there's athletes that like you said, they'll make it up to the highest of the high. They can make it to like NFL, NHL, whatever. And then like, you read about like 4 years later, it's almost like, okay, well, they got cut from this team. They're now inactive for 2 or 3 years. But like that's all they known their whole life is sports. And then you read, yeah, like in memoriam, and you're like, kind of seen it coming, but still
Yeah.
shocking. And then you're kind of like some people will post on I guess Instagram. I think there's one like again I don't follow all these sports as well, but it's like a grandmother's at I think at a college or a university. And it's like I think he's a football player or basketball player walks up and she's just like, you look like you play basketball. And he goes like, I used to. And then they play you the sappy music because like now he's just trying to get his own education. Or in the case of like I think it's like when the football players that they asked him what he used to do, and he's like, I used to be a pro football player, and it's like used to, and it kind of like makes a
Mhm.
joke, and it's almost, and then they play sappy music again. It's almost like making him feel like you used to do it, now you're nobody. So like it's like not really, he's not a nobody. He's still trying to figure it out, but you're not helping his case by like posting this online, making him feel like he's
Yeah.
less of a person.
No, I mean that's a very important topic to bring up because one of the things that ends up happening, one of the big things that people like me get concerned about when we have the shift towards professionalizing youth sports is um, what we call, the fancy term that we call it in psychology is identity foreclosure. So it's, teenagers, adolescents are supposed to be finding their identity. That's like the primary task of being an adolescent, is to find out who you are and what life means to you and all those things. But if we start telling kids earlier than that who they are, and we're telling them through the activity they do all the time, and we're praising them for the thing that they're good at, they start forming their identity earlier and earlier and earlier. And it's very much tied, their athletic performance is tied to their worth. And then they're 13 and that's already a thing. And I
Yeah.
remember that very much as a gymnast. I quit gymnastics at 15, and it was like, who am I without gymnastics? This is my whole identity. That's how everybody knew me at school. That was the gymnast. You don't even know who you're supposed to be, how to act, any of that. And I was nowhere near a pro level. So you think about, what are they supposed to do after if they get a major injury, or they don't make the Olympic team or the national team? Like it's tough.
Yeah, I feel like, to kind of go off what you're saying, and it's different because it's not necessarily sports, but it's like in school, it's that they weren't relying, like, just say if you're going to a gym class and like again, it's just a local public school. It's like if it's something like volleyball, they're picking me last. It's just one of those things where they look at you, they look and they're like, yeah, he's not a volleyball player. But when it came to ball hockey, they knew that they needed a goalie. I was picked maybe within the 1 to 5 pick. And it's almost, it
Yeah.
makes you feel like I'm valued. I have some say. I have some swagger here. But then, like, when you go to another sport, it's almost like, oh, okay, so you guys really aren't my friends, as much as it's just like you used me because I'm good at this sport. Like, now, the hyperbole, or I guess the whole opposite of this, is like when it came to public speaking, not a sport per se, but it's like people would
It's
rely
close.
on you for public speaking, where it's like, Brian, we need you to rail this in for us. We need that pizza party. And I'm like, you, like, I can handle it, but you're putting extra pressure on me. And then when you come in second, you feel like, man, that's not bad. Came in second every three, like, 3 years in high school, coming in second. But then it's almost like, yeah, okay, we're done. Like, you had your 15 minutes and you're just like, really? Like, I still did second, still feel good, but you're making me
Yeah.
feel like I'm only known now for public speaking. That's it. Like, and it just kind of makes you feel like you were saying, like, what am I besides public speaking? Oh, like, pretty good ball
Used.
hockey player. So then you got to kind of like zone everyone else out and be like, okay, what do I feel like I'm good at? What is something that I feel like, is interesting to me? You might not be the greatest at it. Like, I can still play soccer and ball hockey. I'm not a top 10, but it's almost like I know if someone's like, hey, who do we need for ball hockey night? Well, Brian likes it. That's one of Brian's personalities and characteristics. And then it's like, great. I'm glad you associate with me, like, with that. But it's not to like, oh my God, they need me to get like 10 goals tonight. It's almost like, no, they just need a player and they know I can play.
Well, it's an interesting, that's like a good thing to keep in mind as well. Like you said, if you're good at ball hockey and everybody wants you on their team, and that feels really good. But imagine if you're 12
Yeah.
and everybody has you on their team for ball hockey, and you get this little minor celebrity status when you play ball hockey in gym class. That feels fantastic when you're 12. So what's the 12-year-old going to do? He's going to stick with ball hockey because
Yeah.
it makes him feel good. It brings him some popularity, and it feels good. But the problem is he will, if he only does ball hockey, he's missing out on a whole bunch of other opportunities. So he doesn't actually know that he might like other things. He also doesn't really ever get to leave his comfort zone. So he's like, putting all of his eggs in one basket. He's playing one sport. He's hoping he just gets really good at it and keeps getting this like notoriety, but that brings more pressure to perform, right? Because now everybody, that's all I do. So I better be good at it. I don't
Yeah.
have anything else. and I'm not used to stepping out of my comfort zone. So the next time you ask me to, I'm going to be really nervous about it. And we
Yeah.
see this a lot with athletes, right? Like if we ask them to, a lot of them go to sports academies. So I don't know if you have that out east, but Alberta has quite a lot of charter schools.
Okay.
They're not necessarily private schools. So they don't have, some of them do, but for the most part, they don't have insane tuition costs, but it's like a hockey academy school. So you're going to do your core classes in the morning, and then you just do hockey maybe 3 afternoons a week. So they don't have any other options.
Yeah.
And then you're just with the hockey kids. And they have them for soccer, they have them for some other sports as well, jujitsu, things like that. But now you're even more kind of put into that category with just your sport, people who are just like you in your comfort zone. Here's your identity.
Yeah. See, you're saying that, and like, no offense, but it's almost like I'm 30, I'm 34, I'm bored. Like I'm bored from here. Like not like from what you're saying, but I feel like there's kids that are like, I love it. Like we're just gonna do
Yeah,
hockey all day. But I'm just like, as I'm just kind of like, hockey all day. Like I can watch hockey night in Canada. I'll watch a Toronto game, an Edmonton game, whatever. But it's not 24/7. Like
yeah,
put in some football, put in some soccer. Like it's the same way as like if I'm coaching a sport, like I'll coach soccer, but like I would like to coach other sports just because like to
yeah,
get like just I guess just more broad, right? Like and I feel like if you put a kid in that situation, yes, they're kids, they're still developing, they're still growing, but you're also kind of giving them that whole label really early on in life. That's like when they hit 20, 25, it's like, hey, did you play hockey growing up? No. Oh, what good are you? It's like hold on a second. Like you didn't even get his name. He could be like really good at this that you might need down the road. He could be a pretty good like that's why I like I feel like there's the kids that do specialize in one sports, but when you do have kids that come into like soccer, ball, hockey, whatever sport, and like I know you could be in a tournament, it could be one of your better players, and like, sorry, dude, it's August, it's hockey season now. You're like, really? Like we kind of could use you, but at the same
specialization's a hot topic.
yeah.
You're picking a real hot topic. I don't know if you're in the social media world. Like it comes up on, I have social media for my business. Um, Being a registered professional, I can't get too into the heated
Yeah,
conversations, but I see them, and there's a lot of research on it. And sometimes I do offer some, fact-based kind of content on it. But specialization is it's one that gets people going because it brings a lot of stress for parents,
yeah,
because, and I see it too, like my kids are little, right? Like 11, my oldest is 11, and even like the track team at school, he makes the track team at school, and automatically I know we can't, if this track team makes it to finals, you've got a hockey game this the exact same
yeah,
day,
yeah,
we can't go to finals. And I really want him to have another sport. Like it's just school track. I should have been able to do that. I should have been
yeah,
able to have my kid play hockey and school track, and we couldn't even do it.
yeah.
Like it's hard. It's hard even when you really want to make it happen.
Yeah, it's like, but the kind of standpoint I want to go on with that is like just more or less like I don't envy them or like kind of belittle them in the sense of like because it's nice to have other sports that you're involved in. Like again, I played basketball, but I was not a star player. I remember we hosted a tournament and I sat there. My parents are here looking at me. They're not like making a big fuss. Like I feel like today's parents, I'm not trying to make it like sound bad, but I just know it in general, is they'd probably come to you after and be like, what happened? Why didn't you play at all? Like, why were you? And it's almost like, dude, I didn't. That's the coach's call. Like,
Oh no.
But
Yeah.
at one point, I went to the coach. So I was like, I'm done. Like, because they had a what they call a Frosty Festival. So it's like where you get to play against Paralympics out in bowling. And like, I felt like I'm going to get more playing time in bowling, obviously. And I get to play against Paralympics. And there was like
Yeah.
4 or 5 guys that start on the team, and they're like, "What are you doing? You're leaving us behind." I'm like, I'm not leaving you at all.
I'm
Unless like
sitting on the
I'm
bench
on the
here. Yeah.
bench. Like,
Yeah.
where do you think you would go? You almost want to say to him, like, are you good at soccer? And they'd be like, no. I'm like, well, how would you like it if you were sitting on the bench, but you had a
Yeah.
chance to play hockey? They'd be like, oh, I took hockey all day. I'm like, there you go.
There
Bowling
you
is
go.
my hockey for you, basically. So, like, that's where
Yeah.
I'm going. I'm going to a place
Well,
with
you think about,
opportunity.
I mean, your parents sitting there, and my parents would have been the same. I mean, gymnastics was not cheap, even in the 90s, right? They would have been
Yeah.
paying, I mean, not nearly as much as they do now because we didn't have as much of the fancy stuff, but my parents would have been paying $500 a month, probably even in the 90s for me to train. And, nowadays, I mean, I pay for what for basketball? What do I pay? My youngest plays basketball a couple times a week. So it would be $700 for the whole season. So that's $100 a month, we'll say, right?
Yeah.
So if he's getting benched, which I mean, we don't really bench 8-year-olds, luckily, but I'm not super upset. But like if you put your child in a private academy and you paid $7,000,
Yeah.
which was about the going rate for like say a private hockey team, you're pretty upset if your kid's not getting playing time, especially
Yeah.
if it wasn't made crystal clear um, what would get you playing time and what wouldn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why parents get more upset now is like maybe they couldn't really even afford that $7,000 and they made a lot of sacrifices, which is their choice to do. I mean, we shouldn't necessarily punish people for that choice, but when we add all that money, the expectations go up, the stress goes up.
Well, it's like a lot of sports. I feel like, and I don't know, like I don't want to like ruffle feathers or come across, or it's like Brian, actually, you're wrong on this, so I'll kind of stick it to soccer. But I know with like soccer, they have like say some association might have house leagues, so it's almost like okay, players couldn't make what they call their club team, so like they don't represent say Paradise, St. John's, whatever. They just play with their own kids in Paradise compared to like Paradise versus St. John's, like Mount Pearl versus. But then now they got into like okay, we get to do that, but now it's at a champions level, and then there's like a PYL level. But I feel like parents get happy when their kid makes champions because it's like, guess what? They're out of that. Like they've improved, but it's almost like okay. And I feel like sometimes you see this on Instagram where it's like, do you want your kid to be on a team where he's the best player, but he gets like
Yeah,
like very
no
little
time, no
time,
touches.
or yeah, or do you want him to get like a lot of touches, but he might not be the best player? And I'm like, that's
Yeah,
interesting because I
yeah,
feel like if you have the right maybe coaches or the right developmental, they won't really they feel valued. Like I feel like when you're with a club team, you're getting all ranges. Like you get some
yeah,
ones that are really good that are probably just on the cusp of making champions. Then you got ones that are like just borderline, just got past house league. Like they're here
yeah,
because they would be too good for house league. But then you look at a champions team and you're like, some look you see some of the kids walk off, be like, man, like why did I get subbed off like in the last 10 minutes? It's like because guess what? No, you don't have to have equal playing time. Like it's
yeah.
I and
And
it's like
that's
they're
okay.
in to win it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, equal playing time. I think if most people understand that as the kids get older and it's more competitive, that that's a thing that has to happen, right?
yeah,
I'm really glad you reminded me that I wanted to talk about this though too, because what I call what you're referring to with the, do you want them to play on this team where they get lots of touches and they have lots of fame or score all the
yeah,
time versus the other team? I call that the big fish or the little fish. So
yeah,
like, do you want to be the big fish in the little pond or do you want to be the little fish in the big pond, right?
yeah,
And I think the problem, like, I mean, kind of this is more of a societal problem, is that we either are at one extreme or the other, it seems like. And that's not beneficial and that's not what we want kids to have. They need to experience both of those things. Kids at some point, they need to have the experience of being the big fish,
and
to
then
build
yeah,
some confidence, right? And some leadership skills and to be like, oh, look at me, like I can do this.
yeah,
Like a bit of a hot shot, right? But then
yeah,
we need
yeah.
to dial it back. Like this is why we used to have, I don't think every sport even does the two age groups anymore. You know how
Okay,
we used to always have two age groups and then you would move up. So you were always
yeah,
a first year and then a second year, right? And
okay,
that's a huge benefit when you're the first year and you're the little fish and you're intimidated and you're like, oh gosh.
yeah.
Um, and then the next year you get to be the leader, right? Like you get
You
to
knew how it
experience
was to
both
be
of
the little
those.
fish. Yeah,
Totally. And that's kind of, those are life skills, but they're also sports skills because if we stack teams,
yeah,
and this is a thing now in club sports where we stack teams so that we can win. Those kids are always the big fish. They're not ever experiencing that like come from behind challenge to build resilience, and grit like we
yeah,
want athletes to. And then when they do lose inevitably, because every kid's going to lose at some point, they are devastated. Like they have a really hard time handling a loss because they never lose,
yeah. I feel like,
right?
and I've heard this before. I don't know if it's necessarily a theory or whatever. Like, but it's almost like if your kid is on a really good team and they lose in a tournament or something, like I've overheard parents say this, and I don't know if it's just joking or if it's like serious, but it's like, all right, like no, you and so don't have to go to school tomorrow. You don't need to take that on. I'm like, it's they're 12. Like I understand that like the other kids will probably kind of be like, yo, you were undefeated and then you lost in the tournament. Like I get it, but it's
Oh
almost like
yeah.
at the same point, it's like you almost want to go to one of those parents and be like, but was your little child also making fun of the team that was 0-12? Like you
Yeah.
kind of give what you get, but I don't remember that. Like I remember going to
No,
school regardless what the outcome was. And
totally.
to your surprise, not many people gave a shit. Like
Well, they do if you go to an academy school where
oh
everybody
probably
knows what's
yeah,
up,
yeah.
right? If you go to your regular public school, then nobody gives a
Probably
shit,
they
right?
don't care.
Um, yeah, but the other thing is, oh, am I not allowed to swear? Sorry.
No, no, you're good. You're good. I was just more or less saying like they don't care. Like it's like
Yeah.
I look at it from the standpoint of like whoever was there at the game might be like, oh man, you lost that game to the other school. But the other school, like there'd be kids in your class that'd be like, wait, you had a basketball game the weekend? It's like, dude, we hosted the tournament, and they'd be like, not a
They're
clue,
also, yeah.
didn't care.
No, and but if you think about, and we're talking a little bit about mental health and pressure on kids,
Yeah,
right? Think about the unintended message that it sends to the 12-year-old about how important that tournament was.
yeah,
Right. So if they're, of course they're going to be devastated. That's every 12-year-old is going to be devastated when they lose a tournament. Fun fact, my son lost the bronze medal game at his tournament in whatever that was, November. And we had an hour and a half drive home back
oh,
to the town we are from. He
yeah.
sat in the back seat. He stormed out of the dressing room. He sat in the back seat and he said to me, because I'm a psychologist, and he goes, I don't want to talk about feelings. I'm like,
Don't
noted.
have to. Yeah, don't have to.
No. So like they're going to be mad, right? They're going to have their feelings. They're going to be mad about it. That's fine. But if I say, you're so upset about this, I don't want you to have to talk about it at school and like, let's take a day off, then I'm kind of giving him the unintended message that hockey is so important and that loss was so devastating that you need to take a day.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm fueling it, right?
yeah,
Rather than being like, dude, go to school, play soccer at recess, talk to your friends about Fortnite and move on.
yeah. I want to ask you that because it's like I know we have like a couple of points to mention here, but it's like one of the ones I want to talk about is like toxic versus helpful pressure because it's like
Yeah.
I feel like that is something that maybe parents out there would like to be interested in. It's like okay, so my kid lost. It don't matter if it's just house league game or a gold medal game. They're in the back of the car, whatever. It don't like whatever sport they're playing. How can you then convey to them like it's fine? Because like some parents say, let him be. Let him sit there. Let him watch his iPad. Look, we won't have don't have to talk about it. Whatever helps him. He'll get home. He'll play with his friends. Good. Gone. Done. Other parents would just be like what happened, buddy? Like you were up 3-1. Did the coach say something to you? Blah blah. Blah. It's almost like you don't want to hear that. It's almost like
No,
when
they
athletes
know.
come
They
when
know.
athletes come out from getting like can you tell me, do you think Austin Matthews wanted to face the media when they lost to Vegas? No, he's like, I'm already pissed we lost. Now
Yeah.
I'm mentally mad that I have to face
Yeah.
your questions. So
Dumb
if you just let
questions.
him go home, like, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's not even questions. It's more or less like Matthews, like, what happened there? You lost in Vegas. It's like, okay, I know, I'm there. I was there. So it's almost like you're interviewing your kid in the backwards,
Yeah.
almost like, what happened? You're up 3-1.
Yeah.
Like, did you not see the play? It's like, dude, I was there. Like, I know.
Yeah.
It's still here.
They
I'm
know.
still mentally
Yeah.
here.
I mean, I would say like at 12, and this is sort of one of the things that can create problems is we have the Austin Matthews interviews of the world, right? I mean, any
Yeah,
pro athlete, they go and do their presser after the game. But then we have 11-year-olds, and 11-year-olds have very little self-awareness. I can tell you
yeah,
this because I work with a number of U11 kids, and I have these kids of my own, and they do their thing. They're not even always going to be able to recount what happened for you. So like my son will play 4 games in a weekend and I'm sitting there watching. I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable hockey mom, but like I know which game you played the best in. And just
yeah.
out of curiosity, I'll be like, "Hey, which game do you think you played the best in?" And he'll tell me and I'll be like, "Really?
Yeah, it's
That
just,
that one?"
yeah, you thought
Um
so?
All right, sure.
Sure.
We'll go with that. So, I mean, it's just a reminder that even the 11-year-olds that are playing at the competitive levels, they're not like super self-aware of what they're doing at all times. So, like when you're watching them and then you try to analyze it after the game with an 11-year-old, you're not getting much. And then you're going to get frustrated because they're going to be like, I don't know, and they don't. Like they're
Yeah.
not lying to you to get out of the conversation. They're not always aware of what their body is doing, or their brain is not always connected to their body. Like that's normal.
Yeah. I feel like, so here's a good question for you, because it's almost like, so to kind of go off the toxic versus helpful pressure, because I know, like, again, if you're a 34-year-old coach, like there's different ways to coach, say, U15, U13, U11, U9, like just starting off in a sport. Like you might look at a U15-year-old and like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a saint coaching. I'm sure there are times that I would look in a mirror, like an
Yeah,
out of body experience, and be like, would have liked to take that one back. Like I know there's games that we've played and I've said to kids, well, they're out running around trying their best.
yeah,
Like you're trying to get them, like they're amped up. They're told you the whole week, we want to get to this cold medal game. And it's like, all right, cool, because we're hosting, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like you're in the game that matters to go to the gold medal game, and they're tired because they probably played 8 o'clock in the morning. Now it's
yeah,
1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you're there like, guys, like stop, like you're wasting it, you're wasting it, you're wasting it. Like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then you catch yourself in the moment, you're like, what am I doing? What did I just and right? But then you'll have a parent that come to you after and be like, no, they need to hear that. And you're like, I understand it, but I'm like, they can hear it, but not in that way. Like I could have used a different tone, could have used a different message. But and then you see their faces, and their faces look at you like, you were my buddy yesterday. Now you're
yeah, yeah.
yelling at me, and you're just like, bah, it's not the time to have a breakdown. But it's almost like I'm going to have a breakdown because you're having a breakdown.
Like you're human, right? I mean,
Yeah.
coaches are human. Kids understand that. Like parents, there's times when I lose it in the car on my
Yeah.
kids or whatever, and like kids can understand that we make mistakes, but like the repair is important, like
Yeah.
it would be more important the next practice to be like, guys, I got a little carried away. I got caught in the moment. Like I'm gonna work on that. Like
Yeah.
just so you know, even if I get excited, like my volume of my voice might go up, but like I'm not mad at you.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a coach that, like, when I went to watch a soccer game, that, like, literally midway through, and I didn't see the whole game. I just walked in like halfway through, and he had already taken them all over, and was like, "That last one's on me." Like I yelled at a ref, and the ref's only like maybe 15, years old, and
Yeah,
he's like, I got to go talk to the ref there now. He's like, I got to go apologize. I'm like, well, at least he's
yeah,
owning up to it. But like, he's like,
totally.
I got out of character. He's like, I just didn't think the call was right. He's like, I was standing up for you, but I went too far. So he's like, I'm gonna go over to the ref, and I was like, oh well, good for him, because me,
Right.
as much as I want to say that, like, I don't know if it's just because I have the disability, or if it's just the fact that it doesn't function in my mind, that I'm like, dude, I'd love to do that. But then there's a part of me that's like, what about if the ref just looks at me and goes like, suck it? And I'm like, dude, I came over here to apologize. Can you not take, like, now I'm mad because you didn't accept it. And that's like in my
Yeah,
mind, like,
yeah,
he's going to tell me off. He's going to kick me out, even though I'm coming over to apologize. Or like a parent's not even going to see that. They're going to see that I yelled, not really knowing that I already made do. So
yeah,
I just
yeah.
find like, I guess the question I'm looking for in this one is like, at what level do you think, if any level, that kids can kind of, I guess, take the pressure? How much pressure? And like, is there more or less like a way to kind of realm it in? Because you're not going to someone that's just like under 5 and be like, skate your ass
Well,
harder,
some people
right?
do,
But
but
now, but under
yeah,
15, right, where they're starting to get into like high school, they want to play high school, they want to do this, and they probably grown up again. Some parents could have said that to them when they're 5, so they're
yeah,
used to it. But I feel like a 15-year-old, they come to me like, that jerk knocked me on my ass, and you're like, well, you go out there and you stand up for yourself. And I
yeah,
feel like,
totally.
a 15-year-old like, I got you. Okay, good. Let's
Yeah,
go. But then there's another one that's like, hold on a second. Like, I don't want to do that. It's
yeah.
like, you
Well,
know?
that's there's the difference. So like I actually get this question a lot. Sort of like that what age is it okay to do this sort of question?
Yeah.
And I think the more important question is what has been their experience of building their stress tolerance to that point? So like The term that I think captures it quite well, it's called stress inoculation theory. So inoculation is like another word for vaccination, right?
Okay.
And so like how does a vaccination work? We inject a teeny tiny little dose of what we're trying to build up the immune response against so that your body learns how to fight it, but not enough that it makes you sick.
Yeah.
And so that's how we look at stress too. So you have to expose kids to tiny amounts of stress, increasing amounts as they get older for them to learn how to tolerate it. If you completely avoid stress altogether from ages 5 to ages 15, and then you put them on that U15 team where the coach is screaming at them, they
You're
haven't
setting them up
built
for
up. So
failure.
it doesn't matter that he's 15, he has not built up any ability to tolerate the stressful situation, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, what happens if we inject more than just the teeny tiny little dose? Well, then they get sick with it. So like
Yeah.
you can't just like overload them with stressful situations when they're 6 and be like, oh, they know they need to learn how to deal with it anyways, so let's just do it now. It's
Yeah.
supposed to build over time,
Yeah.
gradually.
I feel like and it's always going to be like a tough balance too, because I feel like there are kids that I know that I've coached that I can tell from, like, if you watch them from under 9 up, they were just ready to go. Like there's kids that are like
Yeah,
are in Timbits and they'll come to you and like they're vocal and they'll be like, "Man, I'm ready to move up. Like I'm sick of Timbits hockey, blah blah." And you're like,
yeah,
"All right, like I know if you keep up with this mentality, you're going to be pretty like you feel like you're going to be an aggressive, like a hard-nosed player." Then there's other ones that like they just play it. They just play under 9, they go to under 15
yeah.
and they're just happy to be there. But then it's almost like you might have both of them on the same team at some point, because
We will. Yeah.
you try, like, I know parents kind of don't like the term where it's like they want an all-star team and they want a house league team, but it's like, guess what? Sometimes, like in places like the East Coast, like I know, for example, in Newfoundland, and depending on the sport, you can't. You might have
No, you've
5
got
really
one
good
team.
players. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then you have
yeah,
basically what you call mixed, right? And you
yeah,
might have 2 equal teams. Some parents like fucking hate it, and then there's other parents like, this is good for my kid because it's like they can now be the star and they can kind of
yeah.
be helpful. And then there's other ones that are like, my
Teaches
kid's
them
not the
patience.
yeah. And then there's other ones like, my kid's not the greatest, but he's going to learn from your kid. They're not going to
Yeah,
outright say that, but in the back of their mind, they're like, this is good. You're on this so and so's team, and you'll see how this all goes, and you should be a
yeah,
competitive team. But that's where I feel like as coaches, it's kind of like a hard dynamic because some, I guess, kids will look at you and be like, why are you so hard on her and not so hard on this one? It's like,
totally.
well,
Yeah,
because she's used to it. And then it's like, it feels like that's a shitty answer. And it's like, she's used to it. It's like, no, it's almost
it's
like I've seen her play in high situations.
yeah.
It's like if I treat her like a little, like if I baby her too much, then I'm not getting the best out of her. Where it's like this other one, on the other hand, you're kind of like, I'm gonna kid gloves. Like we're getting there. You're
Yeah,
getting into these situations, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Like I don't want you to
yeah.
come back at me and be like, I hate this sport. Like that's the worst you can have.
Even on a team that's not mixed, as you say, like
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest, most complicated problems for coaches of youth sports to face is like, even on a team where everybody is the same physical level,
Yeah.
emotionally they need different things from you. And I mean, you have kids, athletes in general, but you have a couple of kids who are so hard on themselves that if you even give them a correction and you look angry when you give them the
Yeah.
correction, they're going to melt down because they think you hate them. They think they let down their parents and their team. So you're handling that kid a little bit you're going to let a few more mistakes go because you
Yeah.
don't want them to melt down. Whereas you've got another kid who's made the same mistake 27 times in a row and doesn't listen to you. So you're getting a little frustrated with that one. It's impossible to give every child the exact same message. And like, it's hard for coaches. I feel for them.
Yeah. It's almost like the combination of, like, I feel like, that's another episode we'll have when we discuss with coaches and stuff of like, hey, like how do you have, because like everyone has their own method, and like it's
Yeah.
almost like the same as in life, like of like, if someone's like, oh, well, that worked for me, it's like, doesn't mean it works for everybody. It's like, I feel like I'm more of a parent's coach or a kid's coach, where it's like, I feel like clubs do not like me as the coach, because it's almost like they'll see you run around and be like, we had this structure today, Brian, to do this. I'm just like, okay, that's great. But I'm like, Greg over here doesn't know how to kick. So I'm going to teach Greg how
Yeah.
to kick today. And they're like, what about the 20 other kids? Don't worry, they're covered. Like, they're fine. Like, we're working on the individual things. Like, we want to get together as a team to figure this out. And I feel like those structure, like, like when they give you like, here's what we want to accomplish at the end of the year. It's like, it's great, but have you been on the field? No, you
Yeah.
haven't. So it's almost
What
like,
it looks like on
you
paper is not what it looks like in action on the field, right?
yeah, well, it's like, a perfect example. You have the Olympics coming up. You think Team USA, Team Canada, Team Sweden are almost like, this is our pedigree for a winning combination. On paper, you look at that and be like, because everybody does it. You look at Team Canada
Yeah.
versus Team USA, and you're like, well, I think USA has better goaltending. I think Canada has this. And it's like, they go to play. And then after every year, depending on if it's gold or bronze, whatever, it's like, well, we could have had this guy on the team. Canada should have did this. It's almost like,
They're
but
not
on paper,
robots.
yeah, on
Yeah.
paper, they
Yeah.
thought that this was the best team to have,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't
You do the
necessarily,
best. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it's like the same. I know it's comparing like, oh my God, you're comparing like elite athletes to under nine, but it's like you look at an under nine team and it's like the same thing. It's like, this is who we had. This is what we're trying the best to accomplish here. Okay. And it's like people like, we haven't won a game all year. It's like, okay, I understand that. But am I getting coach of the year? Am I up? Like, am I getting called up anywhere? No. Ask your kid, like, how did they find the year? Oh, I had fun. I played with my friends. I might be scored a goal. I learned this.
They
I'm
all
like,
sign up again next year.
yes. And if they don't, then that's the problem. But like
Yeah.
sometimes parents will be like, well, it was the coach. That's fine. And then sometimes it's just like, just didn't have an interest. Players like, I thought I liked it. I gave it a try. I didn't like it. Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
I would be like, I like playing ice hockey, but I'm not good at it. But I just like it for the enjoyment of, why do we like sports for youth? Oh, for like social interaction, So that's it. Like, I know it's different, and it's funny because as you grow, and like you were saying earlier, like if you get confidence and stuff, like I feel more confident in ball hockey telling another player, you got to come back on defense, man. Like it's not working out. Like I'm an adult and I'm telling another adult,
Sure.
hey, come back on defense. If I'm at soccer and I'm a goalie and I let in a goal, I don't play goalie, but it's like I'm a little bit more cautious to be like, yo, defense, what happened? He just looked at me
Yeah.
like, yo, goalie. And I'm just like, I'll play this. And he'd be like, I've been playing for 5 years. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable telling you how to play your position. You have a little bit more over me.
Well, and kids, you have kids who are comfortable doing that kind of thing and will tell everybody what to do all the time. And then you have other kids that maybe know what to do, but they're quiet and they don't
Yeah,
have that maybe that confidence to direct their teammates, right?
like a leadership quality.
Yeah, it just takes
Yeah,
time to develop. I mean, sometimes you look at a 9 or a 10-year-old and go, "Ooh, I don't know. They're pretty quiet. They don't seem too confident." But like the younger they are, the less we should even bother spending time making any kind of predictions about where they're going
yeah,
to be or who they're going to like what they're going to turn out as, right? Because we can't even do it when they're 18. Like we
yeah,
can't
yeah.
even pick draft picks that
Yeah.
are accurately turning out to be the best
Right.
at 18. So why
Yeah.
would we bother doing it at 9?
I feel
Huge
like
waste of
it's
time.
just it's just like one of those I guess it's like a cliche or it's like one of those phrases that you use, a common phrase. I'm sure there's a word for it, but it's like, when you ask like a little girl that's in hockey or a little guy that's in soccer, it's like, oh, are you gonna grow up to be Ronaldo? Are you gonna grow up to like, especially now where they have like the PWHL, which is great,
Yeah.
but you can ask like, a little girl like, oh, you like hockey? Yeah, I really love it. It's like, you're gonna go up to be in the PHL. It's like you're setting a standard. It's like, I know it's only supposed to be nice, but there's a
They're
part of you
trying to
that's
be
almost like
nice. I mean, yeah,
it's only being nice, but then there's some people like, oh, you think she's gonna, and then there's like someone like, oh, when's the last time a Newfoundlander made? It's like, it's not the point. It's like, just
that's
let her
not the
dream.
point. I
Just let
know.
her
But
dream.
it's weird to me that we don't do it in academics at nearly the same rates that we do it
Yeah,
in sports. So like why we don't look at a kindergartner who learned to read 6 months earlier than his peers and go, you're going to be a brain surgeon. Like
yeah,
we don't
yeah.
do that
We
because
should.
we know it's arbitrary. It's silly, right? So, and by the time those kids get to grade 5, they're pretty much all reading at the same level, anyways. And the sports is very much the same. So, like, why do we feel the need to? Gymnastics is really bad for this too, right? Because it's
Yeah,
sort of a younger sport. Oh, that's the next Simone Biles, or like, just say, "Wow, you love gymnastics. I love watching you do gymnastics. Like, you're working so hard. Like, we
yeah.
don't need to make predictions."
I feel like it's just the comparison for kids, right? Like if you say to an under 11, it's like, man, you played like McDavid today. It's like they know who McDavid is, but if you like you played so hard, you played wicked. They're like, Okay, cool. Like they don't have
I
that
don't think.
envision in their mind,
It's
right? Like,
true.
right?
Yeah.
It's almost like if someone was like, "You did really well with public speaking today, Brian. Like that's really good of you," and I'm like, "Thanks." If someone's like, "Brian, man, you could be like a really good public speaker, like I don't know, like say Conan O'Brien or Jim Carrey or something, like like," and you're like, "Oh," in my mind, I've seen Jim Carrey
It's true.
speeches, I've seen Conan speeches, so I'm kind of like, and then you just kind of like, "Oh, I must be like Conan then," right?
They have their idols, right? Of course. And when they, when they do their shootout games at the end of their practice, my son will like to,
Yeah,
the odd time they get to try some kind of shootout strategy that their idol uses, right? And that's part of the fun of doing sports, is
absolutely.
trying to be like your idols, right? But I think there's just a lot of adults playing into that dream that
Yeah.
it can add like to the pressure that they feel to be something.
Now I know you have two boys, so I mean, I'm not gonna like drill you on this topic too much, but again, like where you say you have so many athletes that you've dealt with. So here's my question: do you feel like it makes a difference if it's like a boy or a girl or male or female, or like do you think that kind of like, because I feel like when they're younger, they're all kind of on the same wavelength, but as they get
Yeah,
older, things change. Like I know it's like the same with like when they say maturity, right? It's like when you're
yeah,
both 5 years old and you're in kindergarten, you're both probably gonna laugh at a fart joke, right? But then
totally.
when you're like 15 or 16 and like someone will laugh at Beavis and Butthead, and the girls will be like, "What are you laughing at?" And then
You're an idiot.
and then the girls will laugh at something like, "Can you believe that she wore blue shoes with the red?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, okay, that was probably the
Yeah,
shoes that she liked." And they're like, "You don't get it." And I'm like, "I don't get it. Why are you laughing at that?"
I agree with you. So for the most part, like there's much more similarities when they're younger like that, and I think a lot of it comes down to personality types. There are some girls, I was definitely a little bit more of that tomboy-ish, that's the word we would have used in the
Yeah,
80s or 90s, right? I was very competitive. I was always mad if they had the girls and the boys separate in gym class, because I wanted to be like
yeah,
in there, not doing the like light version of the sport, and then that would have tapered off a bit as I got older. And I meet kids, girls that are very competitive, and some people would look at maybe are more a little bit outwardly confident, like boys tend to be. It does start to change when social dynamics change around that junior high level, because
yeah,
unfortunately girls often feel like pressure to fit in, pressure to like, be liked. They don't want to get teased. So that can, for those really outgoing girls, some of them end up kind of withdrawing a little bit. So yeah, the social dynamics can definitely change things a little bit between boys and girls. But I don't think there's as much difference in the younger athletes. I've noticed a huge similarity between the little gymnasts that I see and the male hockey players that I see, um, just in the way that they think, right? Like a 10-year-old thinks like a 10-year-old.
yeah. That's fair. I was
Yeah.
just kind of curious because, like I said, it's like when I'm watching like my nephew who's yeah, he's under 13 now, but it's like, you're watching him come up through, and again, you get to know your neighbors in certain sports. Like I have a neighbor that's in under 11, but like you've seen him grow, and you get to know him through other sports as well. And then when they're really young, you're just kind of like you enjoy it, whatever. Like even if they ask you like how they did after the game, like your mindset is like, oh, it's like it's Timbits hockey, or it's like it's Timbits soccer. You're almost like you kick the ball. That's all we're asking for at this point. Just kick the ball. Like you did great. But then as they get
Yeah.
older, it's like that feedback of like you did great, you kicked the ball. They're just kind of like I'm not five. Like just give it to me. And
Just
I'm like
tell me. Yeah.
I'm not giving it to you hard, but at the same point I'm just like what happened? Like use the boards a little bit more, or like try
Yeah.
this. But it's almost like then you go back and then you realize like after a few weeks they stop asking you. It's like why? And it's like oh right, because you've only ever given them. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do? So they're
Correction.
going to stop
Yeah.
coming. It's almost like
Yeah.
if I go to my neighbor every day and I'm like, how do you think I did my driveway today? I snow like I well you missed a spot here, and why did you do it that way? After a while you're like right. But if he came over and it's like hey I really like how you did this, but have you tried this? But
Yeah.
again, I love that you did that. Then it's almost like it that little comment in between, you didn't
Yeah.
really notice it as much because he gave you a compliment, a little bit of like, hey, here's what you should do,
Yeah.
compliment, like the sandwich, I guess, theory.
The shit sandwich, they call that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, it works. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure in life people have given me a shit sandwich when I was younger. Didn't phase me, like because I felt
Well,
like
I
you
mean,
told me something good.
The thing with athletes is that they are like, they have been hearing corrections since they were 6 years old. Like, I mean, I live in hockey, like Mecca, we're here. So like my son's been on skates since he was 2. He started Timbits hockey at 4. And even when coaches are super positive and kind, you're getting a correction every single time you do something. So they've trained their brain to give themselves corrections all the time. So like if we want kids to feel confident and be successful in their sport, yes, they need the corrections, but you also need to teach them how to give themselves like some credit for some good stuff they've done.
Yeah.
Because a lot of athletes end up only hearing that negative correction voice.
Yeah.
And that's going to increase their chances of burning out.
Yeah. It might sound silly, but even like an adult league, like I've like knowing kind of this aspect, getting involved in like youth sports and like trying to adapt it to sometimes it's like really silly to say, but it's like like it's just pick up ball hockey. It don't matter. But like the goalie lets in a bad goal or like the defense, you know, are out to lunch. I'm there sitting on the sideline being like, get it. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like, just you got it. Like,
Yeah.
and then the next time when they make a nice play, you're like, nice play. And then there's people on the bench
Yeah.
that are like, geez, you're really energetic. It's like, no, but I'm sure even if he might come after and be like, dude, that was annoying. I'd be like, okay, but I bet you in the back of your head, you're kind of like, it was nice to get a compliment like you did when you were like 8 or
It was a
10.
nice play.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine if I'm out there, like I've done it before. So like the story between, and again, you shouldn't take it this seriously, but it's like it's ball hockey. I'm like there to try and be like, hey, I'm here to try to improve because you're still trying. Like I'm still somewhat competitive, but I remember
Yeah.
one guy was like, dump it, and I was like, and I dumped it, and the next minute he's like, why did he dump it? And I looked right over to the bench, and I'm like, okay. You can't give instruction. I'm just like either you want me to dump it or you don't. But I'm like this is not helpful. And then they shut their mouth and I was like in my mind, like, way to go, Brian. Like, way to tell him
That's
off. But
good.
at the same point, it's like, I'm not telling him off. I'm just more or less saying, you can't tell me to do something. I do it and then still be mad. Like, you could at least say, actually, Brian, like, come to think about it again, we shouldn't have dumped it. And I would have been like, okay, like, that's fine. Like, you're not saying it's on me. It's like, you're just saying bad call. Like, I made a bad call on that one. But when you're more or less like, oh my God, why do you do it? It's like, because I was taking direction from you because I was trying to be a team player. Like,
Well, I've realized that I speak in analogies and expressions a lot more than I thought I did until I started working with like teenagers because they never have any idea what the expressions that I'm using mean.
yeah,
So then I always have to explain them. But one that I quite like and use a lot for athletes, and then I have to teach them what it means, is that hindsight is 2020, that one. And they never know what I mean, but I'm like, you have to make such quick decisions when you are an athlete that people who judge you or criticize you for those quick decisions not going the way you thought, like maybe they haven't been in that situation because they don't understand how hard it is. Like you are not going to make the decision correctly every time because you have to do it so quickly
yeah,
and you're just going on the information you have in that moment. It's real easy to look at the game tape after and go, well, you should have done this. Okay, well, I didn't,
yeah,
right? Like that
yeah.
I had a split second to make a choice and I made it with my gut, right?
Yeah. It's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like,
Totally.
like I feel like, you can watch like an under 11 game or whatever age group, and if they make a breakout pass, parents are in the stands like, beauty, like, love. She knew
Totally.
what she was doing. And then it's like, if she didn't, it's like, oh my God, has no one ever taught her that? And it's like, dude, that was like 50-50 either way. That could be a flop.
It's
It's
not
like
going to happen every time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like deal or no deal. It's like open the
Yeah.
case. It's like you're a genius. You knew that was going to be case number one that had like the million. It's like you're an idiot. Why did you choose number one? It's like, dude, this whole thing relies on how well I did there today. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, just kind of clue it up here because I wanted to discuss. It's aims for sport? Is that what it's?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
Aims
like,
for Sports are my I've developed some online programming for youth athletes, sort of preventative skills, right? Because a lot of the time, as a psychologist, when I'm seeing kids, they're sometimes coming to me when they're already experiencing negative psychological symptoms, right? And
okay,
I'm over time like, man, I really wish that we could have built up some of these skills when they were younger so that we didn't get to the point where they needed a psychologist, right? So it's not psychological treatment, they're skill building. It's sort of like your power skating, right? Is it everybody's favorite to do power skating? Probably not, but it's important and it builds a strong base. And mental skills are really the same. Like you have to start by building a foundation of mental skills, and that's what I've done. There's sort of some animated and interactive videos and games for them to learn how to change a negative thought, how to recognize cause and effect with your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. So yeah, I've kind of dedicated my blood, sweat, and tears for 2 years to put that together.
Okay, so like kind of like I know you kind of like just touched on it a little bit, but like explain a little bit more of like, I guess when you're saying an athlete comes in, you already see the signs. Like what would be some of the signs and like how would they be able to maybe prevent it? I know it's almost like don't stare away from my business. That's what I want people to come in for, but it's almost
No,
like
no, no, that's
yeah, but
fine.
like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, if I'm seeing, say, a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old who has developed a particular thinking pattern that is causing some extra anxiety or even some mild depressive symptoms, they've been thinking that way for 5 or 6 years. They
Okay.
started thinking that way, where they're only criticizing themselves. They're not able to recognize a mistake that they couldn't have avoided versus a mistake that they could. And so they just blame themselves for every mistake ever. And those are things that we can teach kids to do. Like it's not hard for us to teach a 10 or an 11-year-old that there's a difference between a good mistake and a bad mistake. Right. And it's not hard to teach them that we don't have to believe every thought that pops into our head, right? Just because I have a thought like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so bad at this? Doesn't mean I have to believe that.
Yeah.
Right. So those are things we can teach kids when they're younger. So they don't like, have you ever tried to break a bad habit? The longer you do it, the harder it is to break it. So, if you've got teenage athletes who've been thinking in a way that is problematic for them, it's going to take longer to break it than it will to just build up a better way of thinking when they're younger.
That's fair. I don't know if it's necessarily a bad habit or just called a habit in general, but it's like I know when I was in university and you'd call like male sports, you would call them male or like men's basketball, right? And
Yeah.
on the counterpoint, it's women's. But I mean, I was only 20 something years old, never called a game before in my life. And then they like, it's funny because I use this as an example of like, trial by fire. It's like we were in
Yeah.
class one day and it was like we were talking about sports and it's like, okay, well, we're sports journalists. We're at like Loyalist, and it's like, okay, who's covering the men's game? And then like everyone puts up their hand. Like the girls don't because they want to call the women's, right? So it's like okay, and it's like we all put up our hands. It's like okay, you got chosen, you got chosen, and then like the teacher who's a female was like, all right, we need some people for the women's broadcast, and I was in the back, and I was like, who else do that? Like like just thinking like oh, it's just a chirpy remark, not supposed to mean anything. She's like, awesome, Brian. Guess what? You're doing play by play, and I was like, all right, like I'll bite it. Like I'm like, no one else has heard this, so it's not like all the females are gonna be like, "F you, Tobin, you're a piece of shit." So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And then you know what I did? I enjoyed it way more than I enjoyed the male because the women would play first, so it was almost like a 6 to 8 game. I'm like, I'm out of here by 8. That's great. And you get to know them because they were a little bit
Yeah.
more like, oh, well, we're not getting this much exposure. Wait, you want to talk to us? You don't want to go talk to that guy over there? He's like the male athlete. I'm like, no, I'm covering female sports, so might as well get to know you guys so that I can tell your story. And it just worked out as like blessing in disguise because then you did communications at like Carleton and like they even told you like, hey, did you ever notice when they were covering like the 2002 Olympics, they'd like Jerome McGinley has a wife and kid at home and like he's the man in the house. And it's like here's Haley, or like I guess not Haley in this case, but it's like here's Cassie Campbell. It's like she's a mother. It's like all right, but McGinley's a father. It's like you didn't go right into Jerome McGinley, father at home,
Oh, I know. It's
right? So
yeah,
then
there's all
I was
sorts of examples of
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, it's like those are Easter eggs I didn't pick up on. So then when you watch
Yeah.
sports now, you're almost like, oh, they've done a lot better job because now they have
They
female like
have for
whatever. But
sure. It's come a
there
long way,
but
but
there are definitely points in time where it's almost like, congratulations to her for having a child. It's like, hold on a second. Who's her husband? Her husband's also
yeah,
an athlete. Can't you also say congratulations to him and
both
her?
of
Or
them.
like, you know,
Yeah, the one I remember, the one that always sticks out in my mind was I don't even remember which Olympic cycle that was, maybe 2016 or 2020, but which I think became 2021. But
Yeah.
there was a headline because Penny Oleksiak
Okay. Yeah.
won like a bronze medal in the Summer Games, and the headline was like, I don't even know her brother's name because I remember the
I think it's
headline. I remember her.
Jamie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Oleksiak's sister wins bronze,
Okay.
and I
So
was like,
she's an Alexia. So
pardon?
she is. Yeah. She's an Alexia too, though.
Like, say her name. You
Yeah.
said the brother's name instead of hers, and she's the
Yeah.
one that just won the Olympic medal. Like, yeah, so it has improved for sure, but there's still some instances of that, definitely.
We kind of went over a lot of topics there with like youth, or youth in sport, the whole mental health aspect. Do you have any, I guess, like closing remarks or closing kind of like, I guess, helpful advice for maybe parents or coaches to kind of like maybe keep the youth in the sport and keep them, I guess, relatively sane?
Yeah. I think actually when you say that, I think when we went to the discussion about making predictions, I think that that's a trend that has increased a lot of stress, unintentional stress on kids. Is the idea of not necessarily just early specialization, but making things more serious, more intense at much younger ages, because it is not is proven to not actually have an impact on how far they go in the end, and it increases their chances of burning out. So we want kids to get to at least that 14 age before we start actually giving them high stress, pressure kind of situations, because before that, it's not going to get them further and it's going to just increase the stress load, right? So I would say trying to be patient with the process and enjoying it when they're little instead of um, trying to fit every single thing in all the time.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like,
Yeah.
it's almost like, as you grow, you get more, I guess, pressure in life or whatever. So it's like, how do you
Yeah.
handle it, or like how the experience comes? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure in university I've met people that are like, never, haven't faced that much adversity and stuff in life. I'm like, great. And then it's like, they might never face that much because it depends on the whole environment and a lot. But then there's other ones that are like, dude, I had to fight and claw my whole way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you seem a little bit intense, but like, I feel like if there's ever a tight situation, I feel like I want you on my team over this person just because of the whole situation. But both of them could add
Yeah.
value to the whole aspect. Katie, to close it out here, is there anything that you kind of want people to know, or if there's like, if they wanted more advice about just say what you do, or like, I guess if they're like, hey, like I actually like this guest, where can I find more stuff that she's done, or even
Yeah.
research or things?
For sure. Yeah. So I have an Instagram. It's my at is Castle Psychology. And I do post a lot of things youth sport related, some evidence based things on there, and some tips for parents. So that would be a great place to connect. As a registered psychologist, you can only practice in the province that you are registered in. So I can only, clinically see people who are residing in Alberta. But that was the other reason why I created the courses, right? Because they're not clinical, they're preventative, and they can kind of be reaching, nationwide if people were interested in looking for that type of resource. So yeah, I would say probably the Instagram handle would be the best way to reach out if they were hoping to connect.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to our guests for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com. Follow and like us on our socials, and don't forget to subscribe. This is Tobin saying thank you, Jacob, and good night.